Bojo anin dene magnetuk. Nigani aki inene. Dishne kas kinyo do dam. Sagging donji. Anishinabe ndao. Chipo abajit tuan anin ejigi gitad wimstigoji. Mi wetchman on the na. Got the bending it madizu. Mi weg gemanidu. Igi mi not gain Anishinabe kenagego. Anin keat. Minupi madizu. Mi gwetchende na got the bending it madizuin. Igi mi not gain Anishinabe. Anin giving Chanandago is it. Mi gwetchende na igi mi not gain Anishinabe. Anin giving Jimmy Coat is it. Mi gwetchende na miteke. Ekene mi goen no chigu gatu ta goen. Yakuzien gegi. Kiabideske juene mi nam. Jimmy Jean Geninoent, an enchon dadis young, we snow in the be, skikion, Bushkeji, Kanamo young, anin Mayachi, Chibmusang maki. Migwetch gained an anime shumsituk, Gaina biot, Wabanong, Shawanong, Nigabianong Sugetno. A book send the man away, Nogum Tagamano, Jinchkagoan, Chigawega Taman Genin, Aningagi. Kanamagozian, one in the Anishinabe. As the original peoples of our homeland, we have evolved with a knowledge and an understanding that has helped us to live and to survive for tens of thousands of years. The uniqueness of who we are as a people is embedded in our language. The knowledge keepers of our nations have reminded us how very important language is in ensuring our identity as a people survives. In today's reality, we are facing a spiritual crisis of identity. Colonization has had a deep negative impact on our languages and our way of life. We have been led to believe that only in assimilation will we survive. We are surrounded by colonial systems and structures that are enforced by the racist legislation of the Indian Act. There are those amongst our nations across the country who have continued to remain faithful and loyal to the ancestral ways. They have retained the language, the ceremonies, the knowledge and understanding of living the original instructions. If we are going to survive as a unique people, and if we are going to live our identity, it begins with our language. We have to have an understanding and knowledge of our language. Within our original languages are embedded the essence of our worldview, knowledge, teachings, and stories, which get lost in translation to English. For this reason, the full meaning and understanding of the language cannot be taught through Western educational systems and methods, because that positions it within a different worldview and context. The language must be taught within our context, our worldview and our thought, in ceremony and on the land, to maintain the deeper meaning within, to be fully learned and appreciated. Knowing the language helps one think in the perspective of Anishinabe in Indamoan, our indigenous thought. The knowledge keepers have a role to encourage our people to learn the language. Our original languages are alive and full of spirit. The first language is the language of spirit, which is understood from the heart. The language is so descriptive. Each word carries a teaching and stories. Every word, even a word as common as the greeting Bojo, carries within it the remembrance of the first man, Nana Bojo. The language is both complex and specific. There are different levels of language, as well as differences in the language of men and women. The language is the foundation for teaching our traditional roles and responsibilities. Since the beginning of the resurgence of our nations in the 60s and 70s, the leaders of that time led the movement towards freedom. My father, who was the Grand Chief of the Manitoba Indian Brotherhood, said this on October the 3rd, 1971, quote, "A most devastating illness has been inflicted upon us, not an illness of the body, but an illness of the soul. I speak here of our imposed static state at the bottom rung of the social ladder of Manitoba society, our life of perpetual poverty, of poor housing, and our lack of participation in progress. For the Indian people to gain themselves, they must return to the traditional ancestral ways in regards to language, to spirituality. It must be a part of the future. That is, if we are able to be the true nation of our culture," unquote. It is in this spirit that I too advocate for the importance of our languages, which are a big part of our identity. We are a spiritual people. It is that part of us that we call the spirit that defines who we are and where we come from. Our spirit defines our gifts. The knowledge keepers have always reminded us how important it is to nurture our spirit. It was done participating in ceremonies, going through the rites of passage. To the young boy, it was going on a vision quest to fast for 4 days and nights to seek a vision that would give him purpose in life. The young girl, it was Makoskewen, sitting in the presence of the grandmothers when they bled for the first time, to be taught about the sacred gift of woman as the life givers. Our way of life is filled with duties and responsibilities that define how we serve our family, our community, and our nations. It always begins with individual responsibility to find and live our identity. In today's reality, we are suffering from the deep impacts of colonization in regards to our health and wellness. We continue to live being marginalized. Our youth are suffering a spiritual identity crisis. We continue to impose an education system on them that is nothing less than an assimilationist approach. I am not opposed to academic education. It's just that we have never been a party to designing the whole concept of education. It is a colonial system from top to bottom. Our educational priorities and approaches are not currently a part of what our children are learning. The challenge we face today is to revive the ancestral ways. We need to revolutionize the current education system. The current system is flawed and it has failed us. We begin by taking full autonomy over the education of our children and full responsibility in designing an education that would benefit our children in knowing who they are, their history, their language, their ceremonies, the teachings and values of how to be a good and kind human being. The old ones say, go back to the beginning. The beginning is always about the spirit. There needs to be a ceremonial context to learning language as we begin our journey by connecting with the spirit through the language. One of the most important things we can teach is how to pray to Gjemanito in the language. We teach our children how to pray the language, asking in a humble way, connecting through their own spirit to the higher spiritual intelligence that exists. As they learn the language of ceremony, they connect with their own spirit, identity, our way of life, and teachings on a deeper level. They begin to understand the spiritual and natural laws which flow from our languages. We can work with our sacred bundles, our sacred items and medicines, asema, tobacco, pagan, our sacred pipe, shishigonak, our rattles, teweganak, our drums, to call upon the Spirit to help our children learn. We can teach them the protocols, teachings, and how to sing our sacred songs, our ceremonial songs in the language. In Akunigewen, Our practice of ceremony must be the foundation of language learning. Without this context, our language risks being intellectualized and the deeper meaning, living spirit teachings, and knowledge embedded within the language could be lost. All knowledge comes from the spiritual realm of intelligence. Our language are very spiritual. Language is a gift given by Manitoba, the Great Spirit, that we have a responsibility to use. In speaking the language, Manitoba will know who is talking to him. Manitoba has created our identity. Language is a part of that. Using our language is a way to create a relationship and make a spiritual connection with all living beings, as well as spiritual beings in the spiritual realm who understand our original languages. Learning our languages reconnects us with the values of our way of life through understanding and living the teachings embedded in the language. It is not about learning spoken words, it's about learning how to live. Through the guidance of the Spirit, the elders and knowledge keepers, and the language, we are given the sacred instructions on how to be a human being. In learning our languages, in addition to bringing our children into our sacred lodges and into ceremony, we must also maximize the opportunity for the youth to be on the land, feeling the 4 seasons. The land is everything to us. The land is where our languages originated. We can hear in our languages the reflection of the land, waters of our origins. We can teach our youth by allowing them to feel Beteake, our Mother the Earth, and experience Ishkote, the sacred fire, Nipe, the water, Pagitinamoen, the living breath of air and the winds. Being close to the trees, picking, hunting, and preparing foods and medicines, building and entering Matotswan, the sacred sweat lodges, and learning the language hands-on through activities that our ancestors left for us. As our youth learn the language, they learn how to survive spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Teaching the language in this way is about giving our young people the tools to practice and follow our traditional way of life. Our laws and instructions for these practices are embedded in the language. Teaching and learning in this way cannot be rushed, but require patience and following the natural rhythms of a way of life. Speaking the language feeds and nourishes the spirit, and this can bring healing to the people. Everyone has their language within their spirit, from the moment they are brought down from the spirit world as a child. Bringing back the language and way of life provides great healing and brings peace to the spirit. The resurgence of our languages is a fulfillment of prophecy. Prophecy foretold of a time I believe we are in today. They talked about a great change. What has been done to the environment, Mother Earth, would create great harm for all of us. Prophecy foretold of this time when the original peoples would guide humanity out of this challenging time and into the time of the due life. The spiritual leadership and knowledge of our people is beginning to be recognized in this time. This knowledge is embedded in our way of life, carried in our language. We have a legacy to fulfill, and this is reflecting a leadership and a spiritual movement of awakening. We will not be able to act out of this leadership unless we are living and knowing our true identity as a people. Today, as knowledge keepers, we are challenged to pass on our knowledge to the youth of today. So many have chosen a path that leads them nowhere. Many have accepted the colonial thought and its systems. They have accepted the systems they think will give them survival, not realizing that what they're just thinking short term. They have left their identity and the enduring ancestral ways behind. What can we do to bring them back to our ceremonies, to come back and get the teachings from the elders? Today we see the colonial systems are beginning to collapse. The systems that lack a moral foundation will not endure. If we don't engage the youth to learn from the elders, who will carry the torch of their ancestors? Who will lift the pipe with humbleness, like our elders and knowledge keepers, invoking the Spirit for dreams and visions of direction? We have to act now, inviting the youth that are serious about learning the ancestral ways. Let us set up the environments where we can share these ancestral ways with the youth. How do we save and preserve the knowledge Courchene Manitoba has given us as a people of the land? Change does not happen by the masses. All it requires is a few that are committed and faithful to the ways of our people. As knowledge keepers, we need to set up the way. We will teach them. We invite them and see who will come forward. We wait patiently in our lodges and we know that they will come. We need to set up a proper structure of educating the youth in their identity. Resources are provided for those attending post-secondary institutions. We need support for a cultural Indigenous learning center that is totally autonomous and led by knowledge keepers, having a ceremonial context in its approach to educating the youth. We create our own Indigenous infrastructures in our sacred lodges and on the land to encourage and support the youth within the rites of passage. Language can be learned from the remaining linguists we have. We need to set up courses done in our way to help decolonize our youth. We must share our story, our creation, the truth behind the domination we are currently living under, and teach the youth how to break free from this continued oppression. The approach has to be land-based, preparing the youth for their survival to withstand the current life-changing events. We need to teach our families and communities how to survive on the land again. We have a lot to think about and a lot of work to do to prepare. Our ceremonies and lodges can help us to go back to the beginning to prepare. Our dreams, our visions, prophecies, the physical signs of nature, and the scientists are all telling us that challenging times are coming. Mother Earth and the animals will look after themselves. It is we, as human beings, who are most at risk. We need to give our children an education founded on values of kindness, caring and sharing. Values found within our languages. They need to be taught discipline and the value of hard work. We are going to need these characteristics more than ever if we are going to survive. As a people, we need to ready ourselves, as all our brothers and sisters who have arrived on our homeland, and perhaps the whole world, will be looking to us for the knowledge on how to adapt to and survive these changes. The grandmothers of our nations always encourage us to live in Courchene and kindness, which is expressed in love. Love is an element through which physically unseen is as real as the wind. The universe is governed by natural laws, and kindness is a big part of the foundation that defines our identity. Living in kindness today creates our future. Kindness is about giving and sharing. The universe will respond and give back even more. We must return to the land to love again. You cannot love the land if you don't feel the land, if you don't see her beauty, if you don't hear the many voices on the land, singing, speaking for her, the singing birds, the messages carried by the wind, carrying the messages of spirit. Prepare now, act now, more changes are coming. Jimmy Wetch.